Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sports Scope. I'm your host, Robert Butler, on this Wednesday. What is today? January 4th, 2023. Got a good show. Want to get with you tonight on a few topics here. Wanted to finish up on some end of the year college football thoughts on Marcus Freeman, for instance, the comeback there. He has rebounded quite nicely up at Notre Dame. Rebounded quite nicely there from that Marshall loss there. Some not so good of finishes there. And, guys like Brett Venables, also Bobby Petrino. He gets hired at Texas A&M. That's an interesting story there. The controversial figure there. Also, going to go over my NFL Power 5. Good scope, bad scope. Stuff I wanted to do yesterday, but of course, the Hamlin's, what is it? What is his name? Draymond? DeMar Hamlin's story there with the injury there and a heart attack that kind of overtook everything. But anyways, I'll be back here in a minute 19. Get my break knocked out. We'll hit the ground running here on Sports Scope. Stand by, folks. Hello, Sports Scope followers. After 5 years of doing this program once a week, balancing a 60-hour work week job, I've decided to do the program 5 days a week, 1 hour a night, taking a significant pay cut. So I've started a Patreon page, which is Patreon, Patreon/SportsScope, spelled the same way at the bottom of the screen you see there. For $5 a month, 17 cents a day, you can help support the program. You ask yourself, why Sports Scope? Well, I bring in such big names such as Al Borges, former Auburn offensive coordinator, and I cover the big news in sports that the corporate media will not cover. If you want to contribute more than $5 a month, you can go use the Cash App. The cash tag is Sports Scope, again, spelled the same way. Or you can go to the Zelle app, sportscope@gmail.com. SportsScope has about 5,000 followers and growing. If you want to advertise on the program, you can email me. The word is SportsScope, spelled the same way again, @gmail.com. Thank you and enjoy the program. Hello, SportsScope followers. After 5 years of doing this program once a week, balancing a 60-hour. Okay, now I'm back here live. I actually had to turn the air down. You almost got the commercial twice, huh? So, anyways, I'm listening to. I'm reading a lot on the internet. Your Ian Rappaport of NFL Network, Tom Parissio of NFL Network. I'm listening to a lot of opinions, and after 24 hours. There's been interviews with players. Joe Burrow, Cincinnati come back to practice today. Obviously, guys, Tennessee and Jacksonville, they've got a huge game on Saturday night. They've been practicing since yesterday because their game's pushed up a day. Okay, Tennessee, Jacksonville, their game is going to be Saturday night. So is Kansas City and the Las Vegas Raiders there. So. The idea of going dark this week, plus, Mr. Hamlin, his condition's improving. His uncle has stated that he's doing some of the hospital. He's doing some of his breathing on his own. He's not 100% by no means. He's still in critical condition by all means, but the guy he's doing some breathing on his own. Obviously, they're pumping oxygen into him. But the fact that some of the players have already been practicing, I do think that they should simply play the games this weekend. I know it's going to be hard on some players, but I do think that they should play the games this weekend and maybe have a moment of silence. I think everybody may get the number 3 decal on their helmets. His charity has raised, I want to say, over $6 million now. So a lot of good has come from this. I'll say that. And the idea, and I've Colin Cowherd, Mike Florio, this idea of calling it a tie and going through tiebreakers in that game, because the game's not going to be made up this week. I just don't believe that is fair for either team. I do think that they need to make the game up. If you have to extend the season by a week. Find a way to extend the season. I just don't think that they should. And like I said yesterday, for God's sake, you definitely can't let Kansas City get the 1 seed when both of these teams did it. I hope the NFL usually the NFL gets it right in these type of situations. So I do think that they are going to get it right. Extend the season. Plus, hey guys, it's a down part of the year. Okay, it's definitely a down part of the year. Going into February. February is a you're between the NCAA playoffs there, and NFL's wrapping up in February. I always thought it should go to about President's Day, anyways. And then you don't get March Madness to like the second week there, around the 17th, something like that, of the college basketball. So there's a big gap there. And of course, baseball, Major League Baseball, don't even start until around April 1st. So if it's possible, the NBA playoffs don't even start until mid-April. The Masters don't start until April. So there's a big gap in the February. February is just a crappy month. I'm glad it's only 28, 29 days. There's no real sense of urgency. The only really big sporting event going on is the NBA trade deadline. And I'll talk a little bit of NBA here in a minute. So I do think that extending it another week and pushing the Super Bowl backward week would be great. I was talking to a guy at work, and he was saying they should just do away with the bye week before the Super Bowl. And I said, no, that's a bad idea too. I'm a big fan of the bye week. I remember one of the years they didn't have a bye week for the Titans, and the Titans look a little sluggish there. I think the bye week is a really good thing because the Super Bowl is so big. It's so commercialized. You're working on getting tickets. You're doing all these media stints. You have a whole day, media day, to do media stuff. It's hard to do both and put in a real solid practice for the biggest games of these players' lives of the Super Bowl. So I am an advocate for the bye week before the Super Bowl. I always thought that we got better Super Bowls when you had bye weeks versus the ones where you did not have bye weeks. You give more of an opportunity for players to get healthy. So I do think that, extending the season should be an okay thing. Okay. So what I normally do today, and Andre says that would help teams prepare better. Yeah. And Pickle says the Daytona 500. Yeah, that's one Sunday in February. And that's usually after the Super Bowl. So even if they did the Daytona 500 on the same day the Super Bowl doesn't come on until late in the afternoon. Technically, they could knock them both out, really, if you think about it. Doesn't come on till around, I want to say 6:15. I don't think that it was happening this way, but it would be after. Super Bowls usually comes on around 6:15. I want to say either 5:15 or 6:15. I think it's 5:15 Central Time. 5:15 Central Time to be on the safe side. Daytona 500. What does that start at noon? I mean, if it's no rain delay, you can still knock them both out technically. Extend the season. NFL may go play that game on the 19th week. Yeah, and that's what I'm thinking they should do. I disagree, guys. But anyways, all right. So let's get to the Power 5 here. Let's see. Let's start off with number 5. So I kept Dallas at 5, okay? The reason why, for one thing, the Eagles lost again. They lost again. Sweat, their Montez, I think his name is Montez Sweat, their defensive end, he's hurt, neck injury, going to be out for a while, may not even play in the playoffs. Obviously, they lost their right tackle as well. The Saints beat them. They're still trying to think about this. If they lose, in which they could, if they lose to the Giants come Sunday, they fall out of the division. They lose that. That's another division loss. They went from a number 1 seed selling with a 2 or 3 game lead to being a wild card team and having to play on the road if Dallas wins. And if Dallas has to play Washington, by the way, who now is going to play their rookie quarterback, Sam Howell. Washington's going to play their rookie quarterback, Sam Howell. Ron Rivera, there were indications that Ron Rivera was going to go back and play Taylor Heineke this week. And about 5 hours later, it was reported that he's going to play Sam Howell, the rookie. So that's one job to watch. I think I'll give him 50-50 chance that Ron Rivera may get fired on Monday, which could be this coming up Monday, Black Monday. It could be the Monday after that because of the Buffalo Bills Cincinnati situation there. So either way, so that's why I got Dallas at number 5. The Eagles are not in the Power 5 here. Okay, they did go on the road. I know Tennessee was shorthanded, but they did get the 2 touchdown win. By the way, they're going to keep T.Y. Hilton on their roster. Another deep threat. Seems like he's fitting in really well with their offense. Only been on that team a couple weeks. T.Y. Hilton there, like their pass rush, like their offensive line play, like the T.Y. Hilton addition to with the CeeDee Lamb. They're going to have Pollard back this week, by the way, and he's going to be somewhat rested because he didn't play last week. If they stay with their running game, they have a really good chance to win next week, which would be likely not Sunday or maybe the week after that. It looks like if the Eagles find a way to beat the Giants, who may play backups, they would play at Tampa. They would have a really good shot to beat Tampa. I don't know if I'd pick them because they're Dallas. They find ways to screw things up. But they are playing some pretty good football spots. I mean, they're scoring a lot of points. If Dallas don't beat themselves, Dallas can get all the way to the Super Bowl. I don't say that sarcastically. I'll say that realistically. If they don't beat themselves with that pass rush, they have a way to. If they stick with the running game, if Mike McCarthy can manage the clock right, throw when they need to, and keep that keep Dak Prescott's pass attempts down to about 28 or less, they win. That's what the data says in close games. When it goes over 28, those numbers go way down. It went over 28, I think, against the Philadelphia Eagles. But so I got them in my top 5. Number 4, Kansas City. They do have holes in the back end of their defense, like I said last week. But that being said, I mentioned this also. Chris Jones playing really well on the inside as a defender. Frank Clark, they're pretty good against the run still. They're still around the top 5 to top 7 run defense. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes, he's right there in the MVP hunt here. How this next week plays out, he could still win the MVP, Patrick Mahomes, if something happens with Cincinnati, which are going against a really good defense on a short week. With all that's going on with Cincinnati involved with the situation with the Bills, they still got to play Baltimore. I think they'll beat Baltimore because Baltimore probably won't have Lamar Jackson this weekend. But if for whatever reason they lose that game and Kansas City goes up or something happens to Buffalo and they lose to New England, I don't think they will. KC can get that get that number 1 seed. And I do believe Mahomes will win that MVP. He's definitely having it that type of year. The Kansas City Chiefs are going to get Mecole Hardman back this week, okay? I like the Jerick McKinnon. I like the emergence of him out of the backfield. That is another weapon at running back here. Pasaccio, whatever his name is. the rookie sensation. He's good on the ground, but this guy's really good out of the flat. This Jerick McKinnon, the second-year player, second year with Kansas City. He's been in the league quite a few years, running back. But you throw Mecole Hardman back in this mix, the Juju Smith-Schuster chemistry, Valdez-Scantling, best tight end in the league, play caller. They're still very much, even though they did lose to Buffalo and Cincinnati, both of those were one-score games. Both of those could have went the other way. Kansas City is still very much in this thing, So I got them at number 4. Number 3, San Francisco, Brock Purdy, they were down the other day. The defense was not playing good. Jared Stillman came in, really amped up the play. I think mentally, that the Raiders or the 49ers defense, they were a little bit flat last week. Okay. They're a little bit flat last week. And Jared Stidham, the backup, remember, the Raiders are trading Derek Carr. He lights up the defense in the second half. So they still have issues on their back end. But Brock Purdy answered the bell on the road. He gets the win there. He could be the first ever rookie quarterback to lead a team to the Super Bowl. And, they're going to get they may very well get Deebo Samuel back this week, if not the first week in the playoffs, the San Francisco 49ers. So I got them at 3. You still look at their run D. Deebo Samuel coming back. Brandon Ayuk had a good game. George Kittle had a good game the week before that. So what that tells me is that Brock Purdy is distributing the ball around. One week it could be the tight end. Another week it could be Brandon Ayuk, like it was last week, had the big game. And you already know what you're going every week out of Christian McCaffrey, that zone block and running scheme. They were my preseason team to get to the Super Bowl. I didn't think it was going to be like this. I thought that maybe Trey Lance would elevate. If not, he would be benched, and I think Garoppolo would play really well and get them to the Super Bowl. Either way, we see their Super Bowl roster ready. Offensive line, defensive line, pass rush. Only holes are in that secondary, as you could see on the back end there. But, hey, they got a good chance of anybody. So I got them at number 3 heading into the last week of the regular season, in air quotes, because we don't know how this other scheduling situation is going to play out. And so for number 2, only because we got a small sample size and only because they were down in Monday's game, I got the Buffalo Bills there. I still like Buffalo's running game. I do not. Let's talk about the heart attack aside from Hamilton in that situation. I did not like the defensive approach that Buffalo took towards that game. It seemed like they were playing a little bit off the ball. They were playing a little bit scared there of Joe Burrow, and I do like the way Joe Burrow moved the ball up and down the field right off the bat in that first drive. And quite frankly, the second drive, he had a 13-yard pass, and then that's when the incident happened with the cardiac arrest there. But it was a 7-3 game, and it looked like that defense already had Josh Allen, a little bit shaky. I still may take Buffalo to beat them in an overall game being played because there are adjustments to be made. They do have La'el Collins, their right tackles, out. But I do like their defensive coordinator, and I do like their unit as a whole. I like Buffalo's talent better overall, though. It's on the defensive side. They have better playmakers, but Buffalo has a better defensive roster as a whole, even without Von Miller. Okay? So I did put Buffalo at 2. And obviously at number 1, I've got Cincinnati at number 1 for right now. It's really 1 and 1A when you look at Buffalo, Cincinnati. I do think they're the 2 best teams in the league. I do think these 2 quarterbacks are playing at an extremely high level for the last 2 years. These 2 quarterbacks with Patrick Mahomes, 1A, B, and C, if you want to go that route, are right there for the MVP. This was Jalen Hurts to lose before he got hurt. No pun intended. Before he got hurt, because they were running off with the 1 seed and the overall best record. But now they've lost 2 straight. There's no guarantee that they're going to win on Sunday. So, like I said, Cincinnati, Buffalo, San Francisco, number 3, number 4, Kansas City, and number 5, Dallas. I don't think I'm really missing anybody. I think these other teams that are playing are pretty much mediocre at best. If you think about it, their holes seem to be bigger. There's teams like Seattle still has a chance to get into the playoffs. Green Bay, could Green Bay get hot? Yes. Could they continue their hot streak? Excuse me. Is Christian Watson's hip going to be better this week? I do think there's probably still going to win come Sunday against Detroit in the primetime game. They could sneak in. That's like I said last week or yesterday. I think Green Bay could sneak in there, but I'm not going to put them in the top 5 right now. Not right this second. So that is what it is. Pickle says that the Cincinnati defense is underrated. Yeah, they're underrated. I mean, he looked confused on that last drive, and even Sean McDermott, out of respect for the defensive coordinator, Lou Arenado, for Cincinnati, I thought they were going to go for it on that 4th down. I don't want to say it was like 4th and 4, and they were like on the 30-something yard line. I thought, man, he may put a run-pass option for Josh Allen, and it was early in the game. He's like, no, we'll just take the points for right now. And I'm thinking, I wonder if that is just respect for that Cincinnati defense, But anyways, so that's the Power 5. Okay, let's go with good scope, bad scope, where I was right, where I was wrong. I love it to admit this. I got this from Colin Cowher. Good, Will Colin was right, Will Colin was wrong. I think it shows good accountability to not be an egomaniac and not realize, hey, I made some mistakes, but we all do. Nobody bats 1,000, right? Okay, good scope where I was right. Green Bay beating Minnesota. A lot of people picked against me last week in the national media, okay? Green Bay beating Minnesota due to an improvement of defense, particularly the secondary. My eyes were not lying me. It wasn't all about Tua's concussions. Justin Jefferson, the best receiver in the NFL this year, according to yards. Plus, if you did a poll this year for all the players in the league, defense, offense, coaches, who's the best receiver in 2022, 2023? You're probably going to get the majority is probably going to say Justin Jefferson. Well, Jaire Alexander held him to 1 catch, 15 yards. Green Bay was up 41-3 coming into the 4th quarter. Green Bay's a dangerous team in the playoffs, guys. So I was right about them beating Minnesota. I was right about their defense not being flukish, and they seem to be getting better and tightening up at the right time. Okay? Bad scope, where I was wrong. Thinking the Jets would bounce back with Mike White at quarterback at Seattle. They got down 17-3 early in that game. They lost that game 23-6. The offense is dismal, and they have no quarterback. The Jets have no quarterback. A lot of people are starting to defend LaFleur, the coordinator. I do think they probably should make a change at coordinator. I'm just not really impressed with their scheme. It looks like that Pete Carroll defense was way ahead of them, and I was listening to Sport News earlier this morning, and somebody mentioned, well, it's the same offense of the 49ers, so Pete Carroll's already ahead of the game. Mike White's not the answer. He's consistently inconsistent. Zach Wilson, contrary to what you hear from Robert Saleh, he's not the answer either there right now. They're going to have to go out and get a quarterback. I would try to get a Derek Carr. I would try to go out and get a veteran if I could. I don't know about Aaron Rodgers, but I do think Derek Carr would be plausible. Derek Carr has a no trade clause. Maybe they can work out something and kind of talk him into coming to that team. They have some pieces. They need a left tackle. Yes, they do need a left tackle. They have pieces on defense. I think Garrett Wilson is a legit number one wide receiver. Breece Hall is going to be back next year. Really good running back in the flat there. They've had some decent number twos there between Corey Davis and Carter there. Elijah Moore, Michael Carter's the other running back. They have pieces on that team, and they definitely have a defense, something Derek Carr's never had with the Raiders. They were close to 30th. So, yeah, I was wrong. I was wrong about the Jets bouncing back and the Jets doing anything. They're pretty much that they have been eliminated from the playoffs. Okay. Good scope. Ron Rivera, too impulsive with yanking Taylor Heinicke out. Carson Wentz earlier. Obviously, they're eliminated. They were expected to play Heinicke, but later reported, like I said just a few minutes ago, that rookie Sam Howell will get the start. I wonder if the general manager made that call to override that, or Daniel Snyder told the general manager, no, we want to see what this rookie looks like out of North Carolina. We're out of this thing. Let's not play musical quarterbacks with Carson Wentz, who will probably not get a shot as a starting quarterback for a while, especially with his salary, maybe when his contract is up, or Taylor Heinicke. So they're going to play Sam Howell. I give Ron Rivera, again, 50-50 chance to potentially get fired come Monday, or whenever Black Monday happens in the NFL. That's just my opinion. Hope they don't. Hope they stay with Ron for a while. I like Ron Rivera. He has won Coach of the Year twice. They simply need a quarterback. They simply need some consistency on the offensive side. Could they be in the Derek Carr sweepstakes? I mentioned that a few weeks ago. That would be something worthwhile towards looking into, folks. All right? Bad scope. Almost felt like a lock Seattle would get the number one pick coming into the preseason. Well, I just mentioned Pete Carroll. I thought he was going to get fired. Almost a lock. Even Jim Jeffcoat said he had a source. Former Dallas Cowboy said on the Mac and Jack and Jim show, he says, I've got a source that tells me that Pete Carroll will get fired if this team doesn't play well this year. Well, they're 8-8. And they have a shot to get into the playoffs come Sunday. I figured that they would have the record that Houston's got. I was going to get the number one pick. They're in the playoff hunt, and Russell Wilson's team is eliminated, and they fired their coach. This trade is rivaling the Herschel Walker trade back in 1989 for Dallas. You know? Let's see. I'm trying to think. I wonder if So the Seahawks, they got, again, they have Denver's top 5 pick in the first and the second round. They got plenty of cap room, and Pete Carroll may very well get an extension. Here's another good scope for you. Predicting at any times the Rams are a top-heavy team. If they get bit by the injury bug, they're not just going to take a step back. They're going to fall off a cliff. Well, I read a stat today that the 11 losses are the most ever by a defending Super Bowl champion. 11 losses that the Rams had, which they lost again last week to the Chargers. That's the most ever by a Super Bowl winning team the following year. That's what happens when you keep trading away first-round picks and you give a lot of money to guys like what's the guy's name? That running back they got, I can't remember. I think the guy actually retired. But either way, overpaying people, they were still getting out of that. That being said, they did win the Super Bowl. They did win the Super Bowl. But these 11 losses, Sean McVay could see this coming. That was why he was thinking about maybe semi-retiring, taking a broadcasting job for a few years, waiting for a better job to come open because he didn't want to go through a rebuild. Well, he didn't. He came back, and then they got the injuries, and he probably should have listened to his instinct, went out on top, and have teams just back up Brinks trucks to his place there and let him get another job. They would have offered him big money to take a Brock, and he might do that still this year. I wouldn't rule it out, folks. I wouldn't rule it out for Fox or ESPN or maybe Prime, somebody like that, offer him a gig and he take it because he knows they're going to be no draft picks, cap issues, a lot of issues from years to come, especially when Aaron Donald retires. He thought about retiring this past year. So I was right about that. All right, here now, switching gears a little bit, folks. Coming up towards the end of the college season, tomorrow I'll break down TCU and Georgia. I do think that Georgia will play much better Saturday. I think they'll knock off that rust that occurred over a month without playing a game that they had against Ohio State and play well. But I'll break the whole game down tomorrow. There was some college football news today. We were talking about Texas A&M a few weeks ago, having this really good class and falling flat on their face. And a lot of it was a quarterback problem. I thought that Jimbo Fisher kind of had an issue, kind of like Jim Harbaugh did. By the way, Harbaugh, he's thinking like me. He reports are today he's going to stay at Michigan. I think he's going to stay at Michigan because he don't want to take that Carolina job. I digress. Okay, so Texas A&M, they fired their offensive coordinator. I knew that was going to happen. The next step would be, for Jimbo Fisher to take a pay cut, which he didn't. He didn't have that. We haven't got there yet. But so they hire Bobby Petrino at Texas A&M. Okay, that story came out. Now Petrino is a guy. He's the guy. By the way, he coached Lamar Jackson at Louisville. I mean, the guy is really good with quarterbacks. But this is a story that came out. This is from CBS. It says Texas A&M has finalized a deal to hire Bobby Petrino's offensive coordinator. According to multiple reports, is expected to take over play calling duties for the Aggies. Most recently served as the head coach of Missouri State. And then he was hired to become the UNLV offensive coordinator. He takes the job. This is Petrino being Petrino. He takes the job at UNLV. Then he leaves it and resigns to take the job at Texas A&M because they couldn't get nobody else to take the job at A&M. Now, that's Bobby Petrino. He always job hop. He's always looking for a better opportunity. And the head coach says we accepted the resignation, Petrino, yada, yada, yada. Petrino would come to a Texas A&M with a plethora of experience as a head coach. Remember, he coached at Louisville, Arkansas, Western Kentucky, and for the Atlanta Falcons for a cup of coffee. Walked out on them in the middle of the season. Like I just mentioned, he really, Lamar Jackson really took off with Louisville. He played well. He lit up Florida State. I will say this. Yeah, he's got character issues. That's without a doubt. This reminds me of Nick Saban going after a guy he's not really comfortable with, but he knows he's good. He's better than what his expertise is. It shows me that Nick Saban has some he is very secure when he hired Lane Kiffin to take over his quarterback, and the quarterback play got a lot better. The recruiting got a lot better at Alabama. That's the same thing with Petrino. I know he's got character problems. It's the same guy that got he hired a woman that he was having an affair with at Arkansas. That's what caused him to get fired there. He walked out on the Falcons in the middle of the night while he was when Louisville. He was visiting other jobs and lying about it and saying he was not doing it. So he's a shady guy, but he is a very good coach. He goes immediately, turns around to Arkansas. Ryan Mallett, this guy named Ryan Mallett, a very raw quarterback. In 2 years with Petrino, 62 touchdowns, 19 picks. This guy had 157 quarterback rating. Didn't do nothing in NFL. Couldn't nobody work with him, but he did a really good job. Guys like Ryan Mallett. I've already mentioned Lamar Jackson. Other notable players, Brian Brom of Louisville, got to be a second-round pick. Tyler Wilson at Arkansas, a finalist for the Manning Award and Johnny Unitas Award. He's really good with quarterbacks. He's going to be working with a 5-star player named Connor Wingman. He's a second-year player. This is going to be playing at quarterback at Texas A&M. I expect a major turnaround from A&M. I expect them to do really well here. 9-10 wins, maybe better. He's going to have some stiff competition because we know Brian Kelly is a well of a coach, and they had a really good class down in LSU, and he is in the West where, Alabama, but the Alabama will play at Texas A&M this year. They had to play at Alabama, and it was a 4-point game last year. Alabama's still there. Auburn has Hugh Freeze. It's murder's row. Bobby Petrino's good at what he does. You might not have him for a year or two, but I commend, even though it may be uncomfortable for some, I commend Jimbo Fisher for making this move. I know Petrino, and hey, look, he's all about winning, and he's not. He doesn't feel any kind of insecurity. This guy used to be a former head coach, and Nick Saban brings in former head coaches all the time. Bill O'Brien, Steve Sarkisian, who's now the coach at Texas, Lane Kiffin. And that tells you that he's secure. He's not worried about his job. He's already got a national championship. And Petrino, I think I'm just looking forward to seeing how well that they do with him coaching the quarterbacks down there. With coaching this quarterback talent, he'll get everything out of him. He will get everything out of this guy. Also, I wanted to give a little praise here to Marcus Freeman. He said, who's Marcus Freeman? Notre Dame's head coach. When they lost, they opened the season to Ohio State, played Ohio State pretty close, but the very next week, Notre Dame loses to the very next week, they lose to Marshall. And when they lost to Marshall, I thought to myself, yeah, this team is done, man. I mean, they are this guy is way too young. He's 35. He is they probably hired him immediately because of his recruiting, but the guy bounced back. The team bounced back. They went on to beat Cal. They went on to beat Carolina. They beat Clemson. They beat Syracuse. They did lose a close one to Stanford, and they did lose to USC down the stretch. But, I just mentioned some of their big wins. And also they finished the season beating, in a comeback margin, beating a good South Carolina team that beat Tennessee and Clemson also. I thought South Carolina was for sure going to beat them. And on top of all that, he gets a transfer. He gets this guy, Sam Hartman, from Wake Forest to transfer. 38 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Guy's a really good quarterback, really good release. I think he'll be a pro prospect. Even though he's been in college for a while, Sam Hartman will be a really good transfer there. And on top of that, they got the number ranked 8 class in the country, just ahead of teams like Tennessee. Big bounce back. I'm not sure he's going to still work out, but the defense got better, got the good transfer, got some big wins towards the end of the season. and the number 8 recruiting class in the country. Now they got a shot to knock out Ohio State. Ohio State plays them next year at Notre Dame. I looked at their schedule. They got a shot to redeem that challenge against Ohio State. So big bounce back there for him. What the flip side? Brent Venables. Brent Venables was the Clemson defensive coordinator that was hired to go take over at Oklahoma. The Oklahoma Brent Venables, man, I tell you, they end up losing 7. They have a losing record. They finished the season with a losing record for the first time since 1999. And this team, remember when Lincoln Riley left this team, they were, a 1 or 2 loss team, borderline national championship contender, playoff contender when he left this team and took the USC job. Brent Venables supposed to fix the defense, keep everything in tight offensively. That didn't happen. This team was totally shut out and dominated by Texas. They lose their bowl game to Florida State. They have a losing record. First time since 1999. Venables is a classic guy, very animated on the sideline type of coach. He comes off as a guy that's probably just a really good coordinator. I noticed Clemson's defense has taken a hit this year. They played really well at times, and they played awful at times. They had a really bad game against Wake Forest defensively. Speaking of Wake Forest, Sam Hartman. And they could use Brent Venables back here. All that being said, he's also one of those guys that I think they looked at his recruiting ability, because Oklahoma, for the 2023 class, they had the number 3 class behind Alabama and Georgia. With losing all those games, what are those students thinking? Now, of course, these kids can transfer, right? So this time next year, if he's not fired, people will be asking for him to be fired, because it's not like he was taking over a total rebuild job. What happened with Pickles, what happened with Lincoln Riley, he kind of did what Lane Kiffin did to Tennessee. He kind of just left and caught Oklahoma way off guard, kind of left late in the kind of caught them off guard there, left after the season. It wasn't a situation where things were going south. He just kind of caught, it was after recruiting and everything. So he leaves like that, same job, right? Takes the USC job, the glamour USC job. By the way, they lost again the other day, and I was reading Bruce Feldman and some of the college football writers saying, nah, I don't think he's going to win. They blew a 16 lead in like last 3 minutes to go or something like that against Tulane. And he's saying, like I said from the get-go, it's a lateral move. His defense is never going to play good because he's never going to put the right people in place there. It's a lateral move. He may get an NFL job, Lincoln Riley. He is the quarterback whisperer, but I don't think it's going to turn out. I think he's going to have 2 and 3 losses every year. They'll score a lot of points. They'll look great. They're going to win any national championships. I just don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen. But so Venables, so he does that, and then Oklahoma's stuck with this Brent Venables guy. Oklahoma will be looking for a coach next year. If not, the fans are going to ask them to. They're going to be demanding. This guy's a recruiter. He is a really good coach, a coordinator coach. He's not a good head coach. So those are my little college notes left over that I wanted to talk about the other day. Again, with the situation with the Bengals and the Buffalo Bills, there were just too many other storylines to talk about right then and there. Pickle says, very high risk for Jimbo Fisher. Petrino is a problem looking for a place to land. Yeah, I mean, it could end bad. It could end bad, but I don't blame Jimbo Fisher's on the verge of getting fired himself, because when you recruit like that when you got that kind of budget, when you got them kind of facilities, when you got that kind of salary that they're paying you, being Jimbo Fisher, you got to deliver the goods, man. And 5-7 and losing to Appalachian State the second week of the season, that's not going to cut it. You got to take some chances, give us some people you're not comfortable with. You know, I said this, some of my best workers when I was managing security company, some of the best workers were people I didn't really personally like. I didn't like to be around them. I had one guy particularly, I just didn't like to be around him. Kind of had a bad attitude. The guy was not a people's person by no means. And just kind of a negative personality, but he was one of the always on time, uniform clean. He patrolled our parking lots. He kept everything in tight shape. And I could turn my back on him for hours and everything would be good. When I have somebody else doing the same job, they would be terrible. You know, he's not head coaching material, this guy. He wasn't management material, but he was really good at what he did. He was a good specialist, you know, and sometimes we have to get with people we're not comfortable with or just not the most popular people. And smart coaches hire people that do something better than they can do. They are not insecure. Their ego does not get in the way to do something better, to bring an asset. They are not intimidated by it. They're not worried about somebody taking their job. You know, you see this all the time. The smart coaches do. And I had to give McVay credit. I mean, he went out and got a guy like Wade Phillips, young, 34. His grandfather was a manager and a coach for the 49ers back in the day, I want to say. I think, yeah. General manager and a head coach. He wasn't a head coach. I think he worked with management for the 49ers. He wasn't the head coach there. His granddad. So it was passed down to delegate and how to deal with personalities for a greater good, you know, to become successful teams. So, yeah, Petrino, when I first saw that, I thought, well, Fisher, he's a risk taker and he's a secure guy. He's a pretty secure dude, you know, may blow up in his face, but hey, you got to take chances. You got to get uncomfortable, get comfortable getting uncomfortable. So that's what I think about that. Okay. NBA news, Donovan Mitchell, he gets a PED test one day after scoring 71 points. That's the most since Kobe. Back in 2006, Kobe Bryant scores 81 points. You know, I'll say this. Now, the fact that he put that out there tells me that he was ticked off, that they gave him the P. Well, I read the story on ESPN. It said that the teams randomly test you 3 or 4 times a year. Well, out of 82 games, that ain't a big deal, you know. I mean, yeah, he had a great game the other day, the Cleveland Cavalier product. But, you know, they're currently a 4th seed. They're 23rd in assists. And you say, why do you keep bringing this stuff up? Because, again, when you look at teams, and I mentioned this last week when we were talking about Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks. And I mentioned Donovan Mitchell last week that he wouldn't have been a good fit. It was a blessing in disguise. Now the Knicks are a few slots back from Cleveland. Cleveland's got a very talented young team. You could see that last year before this move was made, right? But, you know, the Knicks are still in the playoff hunt. They got a 2-game winning streak themselves. And if the playoffs started today, the Knicks would be in there. The Cavs would be in there as a 4th seed. But my thing about Mitchell is he reminds me, he's a cross between Russell Westbrook and Kyrie Irving. A little closer to a Kyrie Irving. Likes to draw attention to himself, you know. and he's saying stuff at in Utah. You know, when he left Utah, well, Utah felt like they couldn't build around the guy. You know, they felt like that he was a ball hog. He bumped heads with Snyder, their coach at the time. He said something about the people. It's too many. When he left, I wasn't comfortable. There's too many white people. He tried to do some kind of racialized tension. He tried to say people in Utah are racist without saying they're racist, but then he turned around and didn't say it. He's a big, attention seeker, kind of like a Kyrie Irving. That's why he didn't get along with their center at the time, who is now with Minnesota. But that's what I was saying, though, that he's one of those kind of guys. You know, he's a me guy. And they did get the win. They did get the win the other day. They did get the win. He's feeling offended because he got the drug test. Well, if you ain't got nothing to hide, why are you worried about it? You know? Why are you worried about it? But, again, 23 in team assists. Let's see how many playoff series they win. Let's see how many playoff series you win. Because I was just looking at this. Teams that lead the league in team assists. Here's your top 10 right now. Golden State, Denver. Now, San Antonio is not having the greatest year. The Pacers, the Suns, the Kings, Boston, Brooklyn, both of them are in the playoffs right now. New Orleans and Utah, 10. Probably would be there if they had a guy like a Donovan Mitchell there. But Denver's number 2. Golden State's on a 5-game winning streak. 50 points from Klay Thompson the other day. Denver's the number 1 seed right now in the Western Conference because they're second in team assist. Phoenix is in the Phoenix. They're in the playoffs. At the playoffs started today. 7th is Boston and team assists. Well, Boston's the number 1 seed in the East, you know. So guys like Donovan Mitchell, Stephon Marbury, Kyrie Irving without another player, they just don't win. Ball-centric guards don't win. And I love Iverson. I love the crossover he had. I remember the game when he crossed over Jordan, when he crossed Jordan over, you know. I remember when he crossed Jordan. Well, how many rings he get? You know? How many? And I remember when Kobe going back to Kobe's 81 back in 2006. What did they win that year? When you celebrate something like this, it's a team game. You know? One-on-one basketball, that's great. The 63 that Jordan had against the Celtics in game 1, guess what? They lost that game. They lost that game. And they lost that series. You know? So, but he gets all ticked off about it. Yeah. So I don't see the big deal. That it's more of a knock on Mitchell to get that. Now he did only shoot 34 times. That's over 50%. That's pretty good. But you know, all I see is teams with high team assist rates. That is equated with winning. The triangle offense, like Phil Jackson said, people say, well, it didn't work when you didn't have the players. No. But if you look at the ball movement of those, for one thing, 4-time champion Golden State, San Antonio during their run, you look at the Kobe Shaq Lakers, that was still a triangle-like offense. The Bulls teams, that was still where you got multiple people touching the ball. One-on-one, that's why I'm down on I like Ja Morant. And I think you could get through to Morant. But, you know, on the last shot, when everybody clears out and Morant just goes to the basket, that don't win championships. You know? That don't win championships. That didn't win against Golden State without Steph Curry the other day. You know? That stuff don't win. 1-on-5 don't win, Pickles. And Memphis is 12th in team assist. They have a talented team, but they've got to get that number up. If you want to win, you've got to get that team assist number up. And I think he does, but he's starting to see stardom, like Corey said. He's got that in his eyes, Ja Morant. And, his dad goes to a lot of these games. I know he goes to the playoffs a lot. He sits courtside. Dad needs to get in his head and say, hey, look. And like I said the other day, last week, when we were talking about the NBA, I think that maybe Memphis needs to make a coaching change and get somebody in there that's going to, like a Steve Kerr type of coach, to get that through his head that, hey, man, I'm taking this job because I know we can win a championship with you. We can win a championship with you. We build the kind of team that Golden State has that's, we can win a championship with you, Ja Morant. We can't win a championship playing like this. We don't win championships playing like this, I mean, it's a good feat by Donovan Mitchell. I hope the best for him. He seems like an okay guy. He's a little bit of a me guy. I wouldn't want him on my team. I don't think he's a terrible human being. But, it is what it is. So, anyways, I'll be back on tomorrow. And Pickle says, they do need one more top flight player. They need a player to play off of him, and one that complements him, not another shooting, not another guy, not another ball stopper, somebody to complement him pretty well. I do agree there. And maybe they'll figure out something. They were in the Durant sweepstakes, but they had some players they just didn't want to give up for Durant. That would have been interesting. Tomorrow, be on. We'll talk about playoff scenarios. I'll give you a breakdown of that TCU Georgia game. We'll go over that and whatever news is flying. You never know. With the way things are going, you just never know what's going to break here. I'll be back here, same place, same time here on SportsScope. Yeah, Pickle says the Zebo type of guy. Yeah, got to get some rebounds, get some putbacks. But, Memphis is one of those. They're one of those teams that, you look to see what else you can add, And I kind of think that about Denver. But then again, if Denver could just simply stay healthy, if they could simply stay healthy with Michael Porter and, of course, mainly Jamal Murray, those guys can stay healthy with the Joker. I think they can win. They can win the ring this year. So, all right, guys, I'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place here on SportsScope.